I never imagined I'd be here, feeling like a stuffed sausage in this wedding dress. My belly is so swollen from the twins growing inside me, and the tight corset of the gown is pressing hard against my ribs with every breath I take. I sit at the head table, watching everything happening around me, but it feels like I'm not even part of my own wedding. The guests are drinking and dancing to the lively music, but their joy feels so far away from where I am right now. My new husband, James, is sitting at the next table, drinking more and more as the night goes on. His mother, Brenda, is busy talking and laughing with the high society ladies, and her laughter is really getting on my nerves. My legs are sore, my back is aching, and these babies won't stop moving. I can't help but think how absurd this all is. We begged James's family to let us marry before I started showing, but Brenda always found a reason to delay. Now here I am, with my pregnancy on full display for everyone to see. Feeling overwhelmed, I decide I need to use the restroom, something that has become all too common with this difficult pregnancy. As I wobble my way out of the hall, lifting the long train of my dress, I overhear Brenda talking to one of her fancy lady friends. My heart sinks when I hear her say, "Oh, Nicole, I just don't know how to handle this disaster. My James must have lost his mind, bringing home this girl from an orphanage and getting her pregnant with twins." I nearly fainted when I realized we'd have to go through with this wedding. Why is all of this on my shoulders? We don't even know if the babies are his. She's smart enough to lie her way into a home in the capital, and James, bless his heart, is too naive, saying he loves her. What a burden this is. I thought he would marry Shirley, the architect's lovely daughter, not this beggar. Her words hit me hard, like knives twisting in my chest. I clear my throat loudly, startling Brenda. She turns to me, quickly putting on a fake smile and speaking in a sweet, sing-song voice. "Olivia, dear, are you feeling okay? You look pale. Let me have the driver take you home. You need rest in your condition. Go home. We'll finish the party without you." As I stand there, hurt and insulted, I can't help but wonder how I ended up in this situation, married to a man whose mother clearly hates me. Is this really the life I want for myself and my children? I find myself wishing for a mother figure to guide me through all this chaos. The faces of the kind nurses from the orphanage flash in my mind. I wish one of them were here now, offering comfort and advice as I face this overwhelming situation. Growing up without parents, I've always felt an emptiness inside me, but never as strongly as I do in this moment. I wonder what it would feel like to have a mother to turn to, someone to hold my hand and tell me everything is going to be okay. But I know there's no point in thinking about what I don't have. I've survived on my own before, and I'll do it again this time for my babies. They may not have grandparents or a father, but they'll have me, and I'll make sure I'm enough for them. I straighten my shoulders, feeling a strength I didn't know I had. It's time for me to become the mother I always wished I had. Lying here, with my pillow wet from tears, I can't believe how my wedding day turned into such a nightmare. The memory of Brenda's fake smile and sugary sweet voice still makes my stomach turn. I left my own reception, surrounded by strangers who looked down on me with disdain. Their judgment hung in the air, as heavy as the perfume they wore. I prayed that James would notice I was gone, that he would come rushing after me, full of love and concern. But here I am, alone, while the party continues without the bride. It feels like a cruel joke, as if I'm unimportant and easily forgotten. The sound of the front door opening snaps me out of my thoughts. James stumbles in at dawn, smelling of alcohol and expensive perfume. He doesn't even make it to the bed. He just collapses on the floor, still fully dressed. As I listen to his drunken snores, I feel a wave of nausea that has nothing to do with my pregnancy. This isn't the marriage I dreamed of, not even close. My mind drifts back to how beautifully our love began, such a sharp contrast to this bitter reality. I can barely remember my life before the orphanage, just scattered memories. I recall a woman's pleading voice, telling me not to cry, and that I'd be going to live somewhere else. At 4 years old, I arrived at the orphanage, not speaking much, not knowing who I was or where I came from. I slowly adjusted, always quiet and reserved. My childhood, there was neither good nor bad, just routine. Wake up, go to bed, attend classes, play. It was all planned out, and I accepted it quietly, not knowing any other way of life. The teachers liked me because I was smart and calm. After graduation, they helped me get a small, rundown government apartment. To me, it was perfect. I dreamed of becoming a doctor and enrolled in medical school. That's where I met James. He was so different from anyone I had ever known, charming, full of energy, and from a world I could hardly imagine. When he proposed, I thought I was living a fairy tale. Now, as I lie here listening to my husband's drunken snores on our wedding night, I wonder if I've made a huge mistake. I can't help but think of all the women I saw during my medical rotations, women hurt and broken by men who promised to love them. Is that what my future holds? No, I tell myself, I won't let that happen. I've survived on my own before, and I can do it again if I have to. My babies deserve better, and so do I. As the first rays of sunlight peek through the window, I make a silent promise to myself. I'll finish my degree, become a doctor, and build a life where I'm valued and respected. If James wants to be part of that life, he'll have to prove he's worthy. And if not, I've faced tougher challenges before. I place my hand on my swollen belly, feeling the twins move. We'll be okay, I whisper. For the first time since the wedding, I actually believe it. I never thought I'd end up here, working part-time at a pharmacy just to get by. Back then, my life was simple. I was the girl with the sweet smile and bouncy curls that caught the eye of every boy. But I wasn't in a hurry to fall in love, no way. The orphanage had taught me better. I had seen too many girls lose their way, dragged down by alcohol, drugs, and bad choices. I made a promise to myself. Career first, marriage later. But the heart doesn't always listen to practical plans. It was just another day at the hospital, helping a patient after surgery, when I saw him. A handsome young man with eyes as dark as midnight. James caught my attention right away. He was so polite and charming, with a wink and a compliment that made me blush. What started as a friendship quickly turned into love before I even realized what was happening. James came from money, his mother a businesswoman, his father working in city administration. At first, I felt out of place, but I didn't hide my background as an orphan or my lack of a wealthy family. James, bless him, admired my strength and independence. He told me I was amazing for fighting on my own, studying, and working hard. He said he respected that. He even admitted that sometimes he felt weighed down by his parents' constant support and worry. I remember telling him how lucky he was to have someone care for him like that. You think being independent is easy? I'd said. It's scary, not having anyone to fall back on. We started dating, and before I knew it, I had fallen in love. All my old resolutions gone. James was caring and gentle. He promised we'd be together forever, and I believed him. I thought I had found my perfect happy ending, like in the romance novels I used to secretly read at the orphanage. But a few months later, everything changed. I started feeling strange, always tired, and crying for no reason. My period was all over the place. When I saw those 3 lines on the pregnancy test, it felt like the ground had disappeared beneath me. We had just started our relationship, and James hadn't even introduced me to his parents yet. And now a baby? This definitely wasn't part of our plans. We were dreaming of beach trips, not cribs and diapers. I was still in school, for heaven's sake. How were we supposed to raise a child when we barely had anything serious between us? We just had love and a new relationship we were still building. I didn't know how to tell James the first was pregnant. I kept putting it off, getting more anxious with each passing day, until I finally realized I couldn't wait any longer. With my heart in my throat, I decided it was time. I took a deep breath, my heart racing. "Honey, I need to go to the doctor tomorrow," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Would you come with me? I really need your support, please." James's face filled with worry right away, and he agreed without a second thought. He asked if I was sick, his voice full of concern. I gave him a vague answer, telling him we'd know everything by tomorrow. The next day, I led him into the ultrasound room, my palms sweaty, my stomach flipping. The news was even more shocking than we expected. I was pregnant with twins. Even the doctor looked surprised, checking my belly carefully before saying, "Congratulations, it's twins," with a smile. His cheerfulness was the complete opposite of James's reaction. On the way home, James couldn't stop pacing and talking, his words hitting me like a ton of bricks. "How could this happen?" he demanded. "I'm going to be a doctor. How did I not think to protect us? Now we're in real trouble. How can I tell my parents? They'll kill me." He kept going, saying how his tiny apartment was already too small for the two of us, let alone for four. He didn't even have his own place yet, he reminded me. His father had promised him a luxury apartment as a wedding gift, but now who knew how his parents would react? I felt like I was drowning in a sea of emotions, fear, guilt, and uncertainty. Tears streamed down my face as I whispered that I didn't know what to do. I told him I was just as shocked and unprepared as he was. I still had to finish school, and now there were twins. But then, something inside me snapped. "Don't yell at me like this is all my fault," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. "You were there too. I didn't make these babies on my own." My voice cracked as I finished, but I stood my ground. I voiced my biggest fear. "Are you going to leave me now?" As I stood there waiting for his answer, it felt like my whole future was hanging in the air. Would he stay with me? Or would I end up alone, just like I'd always been afraid of? In that moment, I realized that no matter what, I had to be strong for myself and for the little lives growing inside me. I never imagined I'd be in this situation, stuck between love and judgment, hope and despair. James's hug should have made me feel better, but his words felt empty. He said the babies were his too, and apologized for losing his temper. He said we needed to tell his parents and somehow get married. He promised we'd figure it out together, though he didn't really know how. I felt a bit of relief, but it didn't last long. When we met with James's parents, their reaction was as cold as a winter morning in Alaska. James tried to break the news gently, telling them we were in love and expecting twins. He begged for their understanding, admitting we were just as surprised as they were. Brenda Smith, his mother, clutched her chest and gasped like she'd been shot, while his father just frowned, staying silent. What followed was a long, humiliating questioning, like they were putting my life under a microscope. With every question, I could feel myself becoming less and less acceptable in their eyes. Not only was I pregnant with twins, but I was also an orphan with no family and no money. In their eyes, I was a terrible match for their only son. But they had no choice, they had to accept me as their son's bride. They decided to rent out my tiny apartment and have us live in their mansion. At least, they reasoned, there would be space for the children to play. And just like that, a new chapter of my life began. Adult family life. No more working at the pharmacy. Either my future in-laws were firmly against me working in a shop. I was thankful they at least let me finish my studies. There I was, taking my final exams with a belly as big as a watermelon. I had always dreamed of getting married before my pregnancy showed, wanting everything to be perfect. I imagined dancing with my love, trying on different wedding dresses, and picking out veils and accessories. A wedding, after all, is more than just a celebration for a woman. It's a symbol of love, a rite of passage, a memory to cherish for life. But Brenda Smith had other ideas. She delayed the wedding 4 times, each time with a new excuse. First, it was an illness, then high blood pressure, then work obligations, or the season wasn't right. It felt intentional, like Brenda was trying to delay the wedding until I was in my 3rd trimester, looking shapeless and far from beautiful. Maybe she wanted to make a fool of me in front of the guests. Brenda was a tough woman, without any sign of compassion, respect, or kindness. She controlled the entire family and their business with no one daring to question her. As I lay in bed each night, my hands resting on my growing belly, I couldn't help but wonder what I had gotten myself into. Was this the family I wanted for my children? For myself? But then I'd feel a small kick, a reminder of the little lives counting on me, and I'd gather my strength. I might not have chosen this situation, but I was determined to face it for my babies and for myself. In the Grant Smith mansion, Brenda's smile was always as bright as polished silver when others were around. But as soon as James came home from work, she would pull him into his father's study, and her true nature would come out. "Darling," she'd coo, her voice full of fake concern, You won't believe what your fiancé did today. She ruined your silk shirt. The foolish girl washed it on the wrong setting. And she's been lounging around all day, acting like she owns the place. Where did you find her again? You've barely known each other, and she's already pregnant with twins. Are you sure they're yours? There's never been twins in our family, you know. It's genetic, after all. Brenda's words cut deeper as she continued. Why burden yourself with this? What's so special about her? She's a simple girl, not even that smart, and she hasn't even finished school yet. She doesn't have a penny to her name. Can you imagine 3 babies crying all the time? It would drive me mad, and it will drive you mad too. You're still young, James. Your whole life is ahead of you. And now you want to tie yourself down with sleepless nights and all this responsibility? You're still just a child at heart, used to living with mommy. Are you sure you're ready for this? You don't need to worry about children who might not even be yours. Wake up while you still can. James, clearly upset, would defend himself. He asked his mother what she was suggesting that he throw out his pregnant fiancée. What would people think? He insisted he truly loved me, even admitting he didn't want kids right now and couldn't imagine what life would be like with them, but he said we'd get used to it. What else could we do? Brenda's smile would turn even sweeter, almost sickening, as she replied, Of course, we don't need to throw Olivia out. That would be cruel. But I have another idea. After these talks, James would come out of the study irritated and on edge. It was clear he wasn't happy about becoming a father so soon either. He felt like his life was over, that he'd be stuck at home forever. Even the wedding felt like a hollow, pointless event, just done to keep up appearances. I stand there watching James mumble something I can't even understand before the registrar. His hands are shaking as he slips the ring on my finger. This moment, the one I dreamed of since I was a little girl, feels empty, like a badly rehearsed play. After the ceremony, he disappears into the celebration, not even noticing when I quietly slip away, too tired and heartbroken to keep pretending. Is this how a man in love acts? Where is the tenderness, the warmth we used to have? It's as if our unplanned pregnancy erased every bit of affection between us. 3 weeks go by, and there's no talk of a honeymoon. James's parents are watching every penny that was gifted to us as newlyweds money I haven't even seen. We start arguing over the smallest things. He's annoyed by my tossing and turning at night, complaining that I keep him awake. Before I know it, he moves to another room. My heart breaks a little more each day. I miss him so much, craving just a little love and support, especially at night when my fears feel overwhelming. I'm scared of the birth, of needing a C-section, of something going wrong with the babies. Here I am, still a student, and soon I'll be caring for twins. I have no one to confide in, no shoulder to cry on, no family or real friends. I try to calm myself by imagining James falling in love with our babies the moment he holds them, but even that hope feels shaky. Then out of nowhere, he drops another bombshell. He's leaving for a 5-week business trip, starting tomorrow. He says he has important things to take care of, as if it's no big deal. Tears fill my eyes as I beg him, asking how he can do this. I'm already struggling, feeling unwanted by his mother and judged by his father. And now he's leaving me? What if the babies come early? I've read that it's common with twins. What am I supposed to do if I'm alone? The doctors still aren't sure if I'll need a C-section. How can he abandon me now, at such an important time? I beg him not to go, not to leave me feeling so scared, but he just gets annoyed. He tells me to stop reading silly things, insisting I still have a month to go, and I'm not alone. His parents will take me to the hospital if anything happens. He claims he's doing this for us, earning money, but his tone is like that of a spoiled child. He says he's just starting his career and needs to do this now to be successful later. As I listen to him, a cold feeling creeps over me. This isn't the man I fell in love with. This isn't the future I imagined for myself or for my children. As I place my hand on my swollen belly, feeling the twins move, I know I have to be strong for them, even if I can't be strong for myself. I may feel alone in this marriage, but I won't be alone in motherhood. These babies are my family now, and I'll do whatever it takes to give them the love and security they deserve. Lying here in this cold hospital bed, I've never felt more alone in my life. The pain in my abdomen has lessened, but the ache in my heart feels overwhelming, like it might swallow me whole. How did I end up here, fighting to keep my babies safe, with no one by my side? Just a few weeks ago, I was living in my mother-in-law's mansion, a place that felt more like a fancy prison than a home. Every minute of my day was planned, my needs and opinions completely ignored. It was like I was invisible to them, like they didn't even see me. I still get chills thinking about that night. The pain hit me like a train, my belly tightening with contractions. Panic took over as I stumbled to Brenda's room, barely able to call for help. Her annoyance was clear as she asked why I was making noise in the middle of the night. She accused me of causing problems before labor had even started. As I begged her for help, getting worse by the minute, she finally called an ambulance. But her words hurt more than the pain in my body. "Stop screaming like a child. Be a real woman," she said, as if I could control the fear and pain I was feeling. Now here I am, hooked up to IVs, fighting every hour to keep my babies safe. The doctors say I need to stay here until I give birth to avoid any more complications. I feel so desperate, trying to reach James, hoping he'll come back to support me, but his phone is always out of service. His mother won't answer my calls either. A terrible thought creeps into my mind. Did they plan this? How am I supposed to stay here alone? I don't even have anyone to bring me my things. Thankfully, I managed to save a little money from renting out my apartment, but it's barely enough for a few weeks, let alone if I need medication. As I lie here listening to the steady beep of the monitors, I can't stop thinking about the girls I knew at the orphanage. So many of them ended up in situations like this alone, scared, with no one to help them. I always thought I'd be different, that I'd find love and build my own family. Here I am, married, yet feeling more alone than ever. But as I feel a flutter in my belly, a reminder of the precious lives I'm carrying, I gather my strength. I may not have the family I dreamed of, but I will be the mother these babies deserve. I'll fight for them with everything I have, even if I have to do it alone. This isn't the life I imagined, but it's mine, and I refuse to let it break me. Days blur together as I lay in my hospital bed, feeling lonelier than ever before. No visitors, no calls, just silence. A terrible thought started to grow in my heart like a weed, choking out any hope I had left. Had James really abandoned me? Changed his number? It seemed unreal that we hadn't been able to reach each other for days, yet here I was alone. I buried my face in my pillow, my tears soaking the thin fabric. My nerves were frayed, and I was losing hope. The other patients, bless them, tried to comfort me with shared fruit and kind words. I even made a friend, Joyce Meyer, a sweet nurse's aide who took pity on me. She'd chat with me and try to lift my spirits, sometimes bringing homemade meals, which were a blessing compared to the bland hospital food. But nothing could ease the deep ache in my soul. I was about to give birth, and my husband was nowhere to be found. In desperation, I turned to Joyce, pleading for her help. I told her how exhausted I was, how I feared something terrible had happened to James. "Why has he vanished?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Where could he have gone? He wouldn't leave me here forever. We're married, aren't we?" The words tasted bitter as I spoke them, voicing my deepest fears. What if something had happened? I handed Joyce a note and begged her to deliver it to his address. "Please, I need to know. I think I'll go mad with these thoughts," I told her. Joyce, bless her heart, agreed to help and promised to go after her next shift. I waited anxiously, torn between hope and dread. But when Joyce returned, her news hit me like a physical blow. She told me she had seen James, alive and well, leaving the mansion with another woman. When she approached him with my note, he looked at her strangely, then at the woman in blue beside him. He told Joyce she must have the wrong address, that he didn't know anyone named Olivia. He didn't even read the note, he just tore it up and threw it away. Joyce said she could tell by his shifty eyes that he was lying. "He's abandoned you," she said softly, her voice gentle but her words cutting deep. "He's decided to forget you." As Joyce's words sank in, it felt like a balloon of pain exploded inside me. Tears streamed down my face, and suddenly I felt a rush of water between my legs. Joyce's eyes widened as she shouted that my water had broken. She rushed to get the doctor, telling me to hang in there and that she'd be right back. In that moment, as the first contraction hit, I realized this was it. I was about to become a mother alone, heartbroken, but determined to be strong for my babies. They were all I had now, and I promised myself I'd give them all the love and protection their father had refused to give us. This wasn't the beginning I had dreamed of, but it was our beginning, and I was ready to face whatever came next for my children's sake. I never thought I'd be here, cradling 3 precious newborns in my arms, feeling both overwhelmed with love and crushed by the weight of abandonment. The birth, thank goodness, was smooth and I didn't need a C-section. But as I looked down at my beautiful baby boy and girl, reality hit me hard. I couldn't even hold both babies at once. My voice broke as I whispered, "I don't even have a stroller." Tears ran down my cheeks as the enormity of my situation sank in. Joyce, my angel of a nurse's aide, tried to comfort me. She told me not to worry, that everything would be okay. She even mentioned her brother, Paul, who might bring flowers and balloons. "You're not alone," she assured me, and I clung to those words like a lifeline. She told me about Paul, kind and compassionate, with a limp from saving a child from under a truck. Joyce promised to contact City Hall to look into bigger apartments or financial aid. She and her brother would help me, she said. Her words were meant to be comforting, but they only reminded me how truly alone I was. When the day of discharge came, my hospital roommates helped me get ready. It felt strange putting on makeup when my world had fallen apart. City Hall officials even arrived to take pictures for their records. Paul, Joyce's brother, was waiting downstairs. He was tall and friendly, despite his noticeable limp. He handed me flowers and gave me a hug, whispering words of encouragement. Just then, a local TV crew arrived, looking for heartwarming stories about new mothers. They focused on me and the twins, asking about my first impressions and expectations. I forced a smile, trying to look composed for the cameras. After the whirlwind interview, Joyce and Paul helped me into a taxi. When I finally entered my tiny apartment, I let out a deep sigh, followed by more tears. How was I supposed to manage 3 babies alone, without even a crib or a stroller? But beneath the fear and uncertainty, there was a fire burning inside me. I was angry at James. I felt discarded, like I wasn't good enough. But in that moment, I made a vow to myself and my babies. We would survive. We would thrive. And we would prove that we didn't need a man like James or his family. I won't ask them for a single penny. We'll make it on our own, no matter what. As I look at my sleeping twins, I feel a strength I never knew I had. We may be starting with nothing, but we have each other, and that's everything. In the luxurious Smith family mansion, excitement filled the air. A local news story had just featured a heartwarming piece about a brave mother who had given birth to twins. The whole family watched as Olivia was seen on TV being greeted by a man with a noticeable limp. The clip was short, focusing mostly on Olivia and her babies. Brenda Smith's sharp voice cut through the room. She exclaimed that this proved what she had suspected all along, that the babies weren't James's. She declared that the real father had finally shown up. James, torn between his love for Olivia and his mother's influence, struggled to understand what was happening. He suggested that maybe Olivia had just asked someone for help. He admitted they had made a mistake by abandoning her and the children, his voice full of regret as he confessed he still loved Olivia. He reminded his mother that they were, after all, still married. Brenda's anger was clear as she scolded her son for being naive. She refused to believe that the twins could be James's, insisting that strangers' children wouldn't be welcome in her home. With a cruel smile, she predicted that Olivia wouldn't last long on her own. She mentioned that she had heard Olivia was seeking government help, but she was confident that her husband's connections in city administration would block Olivia from getting public housing. Brenda sneered, saying Olivia would soon come crawling back with no way to support herself. She almost seemed happy as she declared that Olivia's true colors as a deceitful orphan had finally come to light. James, as always, was swayed by his mother's strong personality. Years of strict parenting had left him unable to form his own opinions or stand up to her. Despite his love for Olivia and his deep regret, he lacked the courage to go against his mother. He continued to follow her cruel plans, secretly hoping that Olivia would return and they could make things right. The scene shifts to one of Brenda's important business presentations. She was beginning her speech in front of a group of top executives. The large screen behind her was ready to display her carefully prepared slides. However, due to a technical glitch, the screen started showing a rerun of the local news instead. Right at that moment, the report about Olivia and her twins appeared on the screen, showing Paul helping her. The entire audience was shocked. Many people in the room had attended James's wedding and recognized Olivia. They were confused. Why wasn't James with her? Who was this man? And most importantly, what did this have to do with the business presentation? Realizing her mistake, Brenda quickly switched the screen back to her slides, apologized, and continued her talk. But by then, everyone in the room was whispering and discussing the unexpected video they had just seen. One businessman, Larry King, could barely stay focused until the end. He was shocked because he recognized the man in the video. Paul was the same person who had saved his 10-year-old son from a traffic accident a year ago. At the time, Larry had been away on a long business trip and wasn't there when the accident happened. When he got back, he studied the intersection footage and remembered the face of the man who had saved his son. But the man's identity remained a mystery because he had left while the paramedics were treating the boy, even refusing help for his own injuries. Larry had always wanted to thank him in person, and now he had finally seen him again. Wasting no time, Larry used his connections to find out more. He discovered that Brenda's son had abandoned his wife and children, not even being there when Olivia was discharged from the hospital. Larry found out where Olivia was living and decided to visit her. Knowing there were young children, he bought diapers and toys, wanting to bring something helpful. When he arrived at Olivia's door, he was greeted by a pale, tired-looking young woman. She seemed surprised to see him, but despite being strangers, Olivia quickly began to talk. I opened the door, my heart skipping a beat when I saw a face I didn't recognize. For a second, I was thrown back to the day James left, feeling that same mix of hope and dread. But this wasn't my husband, it was someone else. Suddenly, I became aware of how messy I must look. "I'm sorry," I blurted out, my words rushing. "I need to keep this quick." As if on cue, the twins started fussing in the background, their cries a reminder of how overwhelming everything felt. "The babies need feeding," I added, feeling a bit embarrassed. "I haven't managed to finish anything today." Then, I caught the smell of burning food and added, "And I think my stew is about to burn. I need to check on it." The man, who introduced himself as Larry, handed me some bags and asked about Paul, the man who had helped me at the hospital. As he spoke, I felt a flood of emotions: gratitude for Paul's kindness, shame about my current situation, and a small flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, things could get better. "Thank you," I said, my voice thick with emotion as I accepted the gifts. "Paul is Joyce's brother, the nurse's aide. We became friends at the hospital." I couldn't help but add, "He's a good man, kind. He helped me bring the babies home." I couldn't have managed alone. Bitterness crept into my voice as I continued. "My shameless husband abandoned us, but God will judge him, and his mother will survive without them." As I scribbled down Joyce's contact information, I felt a lump in my throat. "They're wonderful people," I said, blinking back tears. "They're helping me as much as they can. I can't even take the children for a walk. I don't have a stroller." Standing there in my small apartment, surrounded by the chaos of new motherhood and abandonment, I suddenly felt very small and very alone. But as I looked at this kind stranger, I felt a spark of something I hadn't felt in a long time: hope. Maybe, just maybe, there were still good people in the world, people who cared about a struggling young mother and her twins. For the first time in weeks, I allowed myself to believe that we might just make it after all. Olivia handed Paul's contact information to Larry, who wasted no time in reaching out to set up a meeting. Larry explained to Paul how he had recognized him from the news report and that Olivia had provided his contact details. Paul shared his story: how, after injuring his leg in an accident, he had struggled to find good work. But he and his sister, Joyce, had been doing their best to help Olivia. Larry listened carefully, impressed by Paul's kindness and courage despite his own difficulties. Paul, concerned for a young woman he barely knew, had gone out of his way to help. Larry spoke with determination, his voice firm but kind. He offered Paul a job at his company, starting as an assistant manager with a good salary and reasonable hours. He then added that he would take care of the stroller situation for Olivia, noting that it wasn't much for him, and he was happy to help the struggling mother. Paul's joy was clear as he eagerly accepted the job offer. He promised to work hard and not disappoint Larry, adding that his sister would be overjoyed, as she had always worried about him. I never imagined my life could change so quickly. One moment, I was drowning in despair, and the next, a lifeline appeared in the form of Paul and Larry. Paul started working at Larry's company and quickly proved himself to be an exceptional employee, rising to the role of general manager in no time. His career took off like a rocket, and I couldn't help but feel proud and amazed. Larry, true to his word, also came through for the twins. He sent a beautiful stroller, so elegant it brought tears to my eyes. It was something I could never have afforded on my own, a symbol of the kindness that still exists in the world. Now, our walks are a joy, with the babies sleeping peacefully in the fresh air, their appetites getting better each day. As for Paul and me, we've grown incredibly close. He's become like an unofficial member of our little family, always helping with everything and bringing a sense of comfort and peace I thought I'd never feel again. He's truly a kindred spirit, and sometimes I wonder if this is what real love feels like. The pain of James's betrayal has started to fade, like an old photo losing its color. I realize now that we were never right for each other, we were just three different people, and what we had was probably more passion than love. I don't regret the divorce anymore. Life with his unpleasant mother would have never made me happy. With Paul and Joyce's help, I even managed to get a 4-bedroom apartment from the city. No more cramming our growing family into that tiny space. Time flew by, and before I knew it, the twins were starting daycare, and I was finally able to go back to university. I've even begun my internship on the same ward where I gave birth. Talk about coming full circle. It wasn't easy at first, juggling everything, but I found a way to manage, finding a rhythm in the chaos. Through it all, Paul has been there, my faithful support, bringing peace and joy to my heart. The way the children call him, Papa, reaching out their little hands, and how he melts with love, it fills me with happiness and hope for our future. As I watch my little family, I can't help but think how life works in mysterious ways. From the darkest moments of despair, I've found a happiness I never thought was possible. It's not the life I had planned, but it's filled with love, laughter, and second chances. And you know what? I wouldn't have it any other way. Meanwhile, in the once grand Smith household, things had taken a bad turn. Brenda Smith, my former mother-in-law, had lost her job, and her husband had suffered major financial losses, pushing their family business to the edge of bankruptcy. James, unable to cope, turned to alcohol, constantly blaming his mother for ruining his life and forcing him into terrible decisions. He could never forget the kind and loving Olivia, and his guilt tormented him day and night. He even tried to reconcile, calling me over and over, but I either ignored him or hung up just as he had once done to me. James started gambling, wasting what little money was left of his parents' fortune. He hired women for company, but none of them could give him even a fraction of the warmth I once had. Brenda Smith, watching her son spiral out of control, became desperate, realizing too late that all of this was her fault. Her hatred for me grew even stronger. In a moment of desperation, she turned to James with a chilling suggestion. She asked if he would forgive her if she took his children away from that wicked woman, suggesting they could live with him, their father. James eagerly responded that he would give anything for that. I never thought I'd end up in a courtroom, fighting for the right to live peacefully with my children. The irony of Brenda's lawsuit isn't lost on me. They were the ones who insisted these weren't their grandchildren, and now they want custody. I stand before the judge, keeping my voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions inside me. James is not the father. I declare, the words tasting bitter. These are not his children. Please, just let us live in peace. Brenda's shrill voice cuts through the room, accusing me of lying and keeping the children from their father out of spite. She threatens genetic testing, her eyes wild with desperation. But I feel a surge of strength as I face her. "You have no right," I say, my voice low but firm. "Not without my permission, which I will never give." Memories of their abandonment flood back, and I can't help but let some of the bitterness seep into my words. "You left me in the hospital. You ignored me. I was nothing but a problem to you. Now, be happy that I'm not in your lives. Why can't you just let us live in peace?" Thanks to the clever work of the lawyer Paul hired, the court sides with me. As James and Brenda prepare to leave, I feel a moment of triumph, quickly followed by exhaustion. But it's not over yet. James grabs my arm, and his touch sends a shiver of disgust through me. He begs for forgiveness, saying he still loves me and can't forget me. I shake off his grip, looking at him with eyes that have seen too much. "You may not be able to forget me," I say coldly, "but I never want to remember you again. Do you understand?" The words pour out, years of hurt and anger finally finding their release. "What kind of husband and father are you? Just your mommy's little boy, always doing what she says." And then, unexpectedly, I feel a wave of gratitude. "You know what, James? I should thank you. If you hadn't abandoned me so cruelly, I might never have met the most important man in my life. I might never have found true happiness." I straighten my shoulders, feeling taller and stronger than I have in years. "I'm not saying goodbye," I tell him. "I'm saying farewell forever." With that, I walk away, my heels clicking confidently on the floor. My head held high, I step into the sunlight, feeling like I can finally breathe again. The future stretches out before me, bright and full of promise, and for the first time in a long time, I feel free. I'm excited to see what the future holds. After the trial, James completely lost control. He started gambling and drinking a lot, and grew to hate his mother deeply. Soon, he found himself owing a huge amount of money to loan sharks, mortgaging everything he had until it was all gone, swallowed by his debts. It was like he was digging his own grave. Brenda Smith looked like she had aged 17 years overnight. Her back was hunched, and her face was full of lines from anger and bitterness. In her desperation, she made a terrible decision. She whispered to the criminals that James had real children with Olivia, suggesting that kidnapping those children could be a way to pay off the debt. Brenda's obsession with punishing Olivia had taken over her mind, and she had clearly lost all sense of right and wrong. I never thought I'd feel such fear, the kind that takes over everything. One moment, I was watching my kids play in the park, their laughter like a balm to my soul after a long day at work. The next, they were gone, taken by men in hoodies and caps. I can still hear the screech of tires as the car sped away, my babies inside. My legs gave out as I tried to run after them, screaming for help until my throat felt raw. The world became a blur of faces and sirens. At the hospital, I was barely aware of what was happening, the sedatives dulling the edges of my terror. Paul's face appeared, and I clung to him like a lifeline. "Find them," I begged, my voice a broken whisper. "I can't live without them. What if they're hurt or worse?" The fear was too much to bear, each thought like a knife to my heart. Paul held me tight, promising that the police were searching and that we'd find them. But how could he be so sure? When the detective arrived, I forced myself to focus, to remember every detail. My hands shook as I tried to describe the kidnappers and the car. By some miracle, I remembered the license plate, a small ray of hope in this nightmare. As the search went on, I felt torn apart. Part of me wanted to collapse, to give in to the crushing fear and despair. But another part, the mother in me, refused to give up. I turned to Paul, my voice steadier than I felt. "Please, let's go that way," I said. "My heart will find my babies. I'm not lying." He hesitated, and I could see the doubt in his eyes. My heart was pounding in my chest, each beat reminding me that my children were out there, waiting for me to find them. Paul tried to reason with me, saying I was too weak to go looking. But he didn't understand. I looked at him, my gaze burning with the love and desperation only a mother can feel. "If you won't take me," I said, my voice low and determined. Then I'll leave this hospital and find my babies on my own. I'll tear apart anyone who stands in my way. I'll dig up the earth with my bare hands if I have to. I have to. I can see the struggle in Paul's eyes, but he gives in, and we head to the search site. We drive through nearby villages showing pictures of the twins, but no one has seen them. As darkness falls, Paul tries to convince me to go back, but I'm filled with a fierce determination. No, I say, my voice breaking. I'm not going back until we find them. Please understand, my heart is about to stop. I can't eat or sleep anyway. Let's just ask a few more people. Just as we're about to leave the last village, I spot a forest ranger's cabin. My heart leaps into my throat as I run toward the window, desperate for any help. The bearded ranger listens to my panic story and tells us about a hideout in the swamp where the kidnappers might be. We set off with him, hope and fear battling inside me. At the hideout, we see a faint light in a small window. Suddenly, there's a scuffle and then a gunshot. The ranger quickly subdues a man, and we find my terrified children inside. The man claims he saved the children from criminals and brought them to the cabin for protection. As we bring the children home, relief washes over me like a tidal wave. Holding them in my arms again, joy and gratitude overwhelm me. Later, the police reveal that the man in the cabin wasn't the kidnapper, but their rescuer. He leads the authorities to where the real criminals were hiding, and evidence is found that exposes Brenda Smith's evil plan. She is sent to a mental institution, and James's life spirals even further with his father dying of a heart attack and their family business collapsing. Looking at my children, safe in their beds, I realize this nightmare has finally ended, though the fear still lingers, a reminder of how quickly everything can change. I promise myself to hold them closer, love them more fiercely, and never take a moment for granted again. I never thought I'd find peace after everything we've been through, but here we are, sitting down to dinner with Scott, the man who saved our children. As I watch Paul thank him, calling him a true hero, a warmth spreads through my chest. Scott humbly responds, saying I'm the real heroine for never giving up, and his words bring tears to my eyes. I smile softly and say, we just did what any parent would do, but deep down I know it was more than that. As Scott shares his tragic past, I see my own pain reflected in his eyes. When Paul offers him a job as the caretaker of our property, I feel a surge of pride and love for this man who has become my rock. I join in, telling Scott that it's our turn to do something for him, and I mean every word. The thought of Scott spending time with our children, teaching them to fish and sharing his stories, fills me with a sense of wholeness I never thought I'd feel again. As we sit around the table, sharing stories and laughing, I realize we've found more than just the man who saved our children. We've gained a new member of our family. Watching Scott settle into his role as caretaker and seeing our relationships grow, I'm reminded of how life can surprise you. Every moment we spend together feels like a gift, and each shared experience is a treasure. On weekends, while the men fish and I watch the kids catch butterflies or enjoy the sun, I look at my little ones with a love so deep it takes my breath away. I think back to how scared I was of having twins, worrying that I'd be overwhelmed. That first year was tough, but now I have 3 little miracles who love me, who call me mommy, with so much affection. It's fun, it's wonderful, and it's the best reward I could have ever imagined. As I sit here surrounded by the family I've built not just through blood, but by choice, I realize that sometimes the most beautiful things in life come from the darkest moments. We didn't just survive, we thrived. And that, my friends, is the greatest story of all. If you enjoyed this story, I'd be grateful if you could give it a like and subscribe to the channel.